The morning sun filtered through the massive windows of the Galactic Military Academy, casting long shadows across the training floor. Minji Kang stood at attention, her dark eyes fixed straight ahead as Commander Vexthor paced in front of the assembled cadets. His scales gleamed under the artificial lights, green and bronze, and his vertical pupils swept over the gathered students with obvious disdain. "Today's exercise will test your tactical response capabilities," Vexthor announced, his voice carrying a hissing quality that made every word sound like a threat. "You will navigate a hostile environment simulation. Most of you will fail. Some of you should not even attempt it." His gaze lingered on Minji and the human standing beside her, Hyun Park. The message was clear. Minji kept her expression neutral. She had learned in her 2 years at the academy that reactions only encouraged the prejudice. Humans were new to the Galactic Coalition, barely 15 years since first contact, and most of the older species treated them like children playing at being soldiers. "Pathetic," someone muttered behind her. Minji recognized the voice. Talia, a Velari cadet with silver fur and amber eyes, had made it her personal mission to remind the humans of their place. Soft-worlders who think they can keep up. Hyun's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He had learned the same lessons Minji had. Words meant nothing here. Only results mattered. The simulation began an hour later. Minji and Hyun entered the massive training dome together, their assigned partnership drawing amused looks from the other cadets. The dome reconfigured itself into a twisted maze of corridors, flickering lights and hidden threats. Somewhere in this artificial environment, they had to locate and extract a mock casualty while avoiding detection by hunter drones. Most species needed cybernetic enhancements to pass this test. Enhanced reaction times, improved vision, stronger muscles. The Kryn-like Vexthor had natural armor and strength. The Velari had superior senses and agility. The humans had nothing but what evolution had given them on a planet most species considered a death trap. "Ready?" Hyun whispered as they moved into the maze. "Always," Minji replied. They moved through the corridors with practiced efficiency. Hyun's engineering background meant he understood the dome's construction, could predict where structural weaknesses might hide passages. Minji's tactical training let her read the environment, spot the telltale signs of drone patrol patterns. 20 minutes in, they encountered their first real obstacle. 3 hunter drones converged on their position, their weapons systems armed with training rounds that would still hurt like hell. Most cadets would try to fight or run. Minji and Hyun did neither. They waited, perfectly still, barely breathing. The drones swept past, their sensors calibrated for movement and heat signatures. But humans ran cold compared to most species, and their ability to remain motionless came from ancestors who had hunted prey by simply outlasting it. The drones moved on. "That was too close," Hyun breathed. "We're not done yet," Minji said. They found the mock casualty 38 minutes into the simulation, a full 14 minutes faster than the Academy record. Extracting it required climbing through a collapsed section of corridor, navigating live electrical hazards, and avoiding a final gauntlet of hunter drones. Minji went first, her smaller frame allowing her to slip through gaps that would challenge larger species. Hyun followed, his endurance letting him maintain the grueling pace without complaint. When they emerged from the simulation dome, the casualty secured, the assembled cadets stared in silence. Commander Vexthor checked his datapad, his expression unreadable. 38 minutes 14 seconds. No enhancements detected, no violations logged. Talia stepped forward, her fur bristling. "That's impossible. They must have cheated." "Are you questioning my monitoring capabilities, Cadet?" Vexthor's voice dropped to a dangerous hiss. "No, Commander, but then be silent." Vexthor turned to Minji and Hyun, dismissed. As they walked away, Minji heard the whispers starting. Disbelief, confusion, anger. The humans had done something most species needed artificial enhancement to accomplish, and they had done it with baseline biology. Later, in the academy cafeteria, Hyun pushed his food around his plate without eating. The meal was designed for human nutrition, but it still tasted like recycled protein and despair. "You okay?" Minji asked. "I'm tired," Hyun said quietly. "Tired of proving we belong here. Tired of being treated like we're inferior. We passed the test, beat the record, and they still look at us like we're nothing." Minji understood. She felt it too. the weight of constantly having to demonstrate humanity's worth. Every success was dismissed as luck. Every failure was used as evidence of human inadequacy. Ambassador Lee says it will get better, she offered, though she did not sound convinced. Hyun laughed bitterly. Ambassador Lee has to say that. It's his job. Ambassador Jun Lee was Earth's representative to the Academy, a former soldier himself who worked tirelessly to secure humanity's place in the coalition. He visited the human cadets regularly, offered encouragement, reminded them that they were pioneers. But Minji sometimes wondered if pioneers was just another word for those who got hurt first. The next day, Vexthor called Minji and Hyun to his office. The space was sparse and cold, decorated only with commendations and weapons from his decades of service. You performed adequately in yesterday's simulation, he said without preamble. Adequately. They had shattered the Academy record, and he called it adequate. Thank you, Commander, Minji said, keeping her voice level. Do not mistake my words for praise, Vexthor continued. Your performance raises questions. How can a species from a low-gravity world match those who evolved under harsher conditions? How can you function without the natural weapons most warriors possess? We train, Commander, Hyun said. Same as everyone else? Vexthor's eyes narrowed. Perhaps. Or perhaps your species is hiding something. I have decided to assign you both to deep space patrol duty. A reconnaissance mission along the contested border zone. It should prove illuminating. Minji's stomach tightened. The contested border zone was dangerous, prone to pirate raids and territorial disputes. Sending 2 cadets there was unusual. Sending 2 human cadets there felt deliberate. When do we deploy? She asked. Tomorrow at dawn. Vexthor dismissed them with a wave of his clawed hand. Do try not to embarrass your species. That evening, Minji found Hyun on the Academy's observation deck, staring out at the stars. Earth was too far away to see, just one small blue world among billions, but they both knew which direction to look. He's setting us up to fail, Hyun said without turning around. I know. The contested zone is no place for a training exercise. If we run into real trouble, we'll handle it, Minji interrupted. Like we always do. Hyun finally looked at her. You really believe that? Minji thought about all the challenges they had faced since arriving at the Academy. The prejudice, the impossible standards, the constant pressure to prove themselves worthy. They had survived it all through sheer stubborn refusal to quit. Yeah, she said, I do. Because we're human, Hyun. And humans don't know when to give up. He smiled at that, a real smile for the first time in days. Stupid persistence predators. Exactly. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there in the contested zone, their test awaited. Vexthor expected them to fail, probably hoped they would. It would confirm everything he believed about humanity's weakness. But Minji had no intention of failing. Not tomorrow, not ever. Whatever the galaxy threw at them, she and Hyun would face it the same way humanity had faced every challenge in its history. By refusing to break, refusing to quit, and outlasting everything that tried to kill them. The stars glittered cold and distant, indifferent to the struggles of the species that crawled between them. Minji stared back just as coldly. Tomorrow would bring what it would bring, and she would still be standing when it was over. The reconnaissance vessel was small, built for 2 crew members and designed for stealth rather than combat. Minji sat in the pilot's seat, her hands steady on the controls as they glided through the asteroid field. Beside her, Hyun monitored the sensor array, his eyes tracking the readouts with practiced focus. Anything? Minji asked. Nothing yet, just rocks and radiation. Hyun tapped a few commands into his console. This patrol route is clean. Has been for months according to the logs. That was what bothered Minji. Commander Vexthor had made this sound like a dangerous assignment, but so far it was routine to the point of boredom. 6 hours into their patrol and they had seen nothing but empty space and floating debris. Maybe he was wrong about this being a test, Hyun suggested. Though he did not sound convinced. Maybe, Minji said. But her instincts disagreed. Another hour passed. The asteroid field thinned as they approached the edge of coalition territory. Here the border became fuzzy, contested by various factions and pirate groups who thrived in the lawless zones between empires. That was when Hyun's console lit up with warnings. Energy signature, he said sharply. Close, very close. How did I not see it before? Minji's hands flew over the controls, bringing the ship's minimal defenses online. Can you identify it? Working on it. The signature is weird, like it was masked until we got close enough to... The ship lurched violently. Alarms screamed. Minji saw the damage report flash across her screen and felt her blood run cold. Their main engine was hit, along with communications and the FTL drive. Ambush, she said through gritted teeth. 3 vessels appeared from behind a large asteroid, moving fast. Minji recognized their design immediately. Korth pirates, brutal, efficient, and known for taking no prisoners. Evasive maneuvers, Hyun said, but they both knew it was hopeless. Their damaged ship could barely maintain position, let alone outrun military-grade pirate vessels. The Korth ships surrounded them in a triangle formation. A transmission came through audio only, in the harsh guttural language of the Korth. The translation matrix converted it to standard coalition speech. Human vessel. Your engines are disabled. Your weapons are offline. Surrender and prepare to be boarded. Minji looked at Hyun. His face was pale but calm. They had trained for boarding scenarios, but training was different from reality, especially against the Korth, who were known for their cruelty. We could try to reach the escape pod, Hyun whispered. They would shoot us down before we cleared their formation. Minji said. She had already run the calculations. There was no escape, then we fight. With what? We have 2 sidearms and a ship that is falling apart. Hyun met her eyes. We're human. We improvised. The boarding process was violent and efficient. The Korth punched through their airlock with cutting tools, then flooded into the ship in full combat armor. Minji counted 8 of them, each one massive, heavily armed, and moving with the confidence of predators who had never met real resistance. Minji and Hyun had retreated to the cargo bay, the most defensible position in the small ship. They had barricaded the entrance with storage containers and positioned themselves behind cover. 2 humans with pistols against 8 armored Korth warriors. The odds were not good. The Korth blasted through the barricade like it was made of paper. Their leader stomped into the cargo bay, a huge figure in black armor with a helmet that hid his face. When he spoke, his voice boomed through external speakers. Humans. How precious. The coalition sends children to guard their borders. We're not children, Hyun said, aiming his pistol with both hands. The Korth leader laughed. No, then prove it. Fight. They fought. Minji fired first, her shots precise and controlled. But the Korth armor absorbed the energy blasts like raindrops. Hyun fired a moment later, targeting joints and weak points like their training had taught them. They managed to slow the Korth advance, even wounded one of them, but it was not enough. Never enough. A Korth soldier flanked their position, moving faster than something that large should be able to move. Minji tried to reposition, but her foot caught on debris. She stumbled. The Korth raised his weapon. Hyun threw himself in front of her. The energy blast caught him in the chest. Then another, and another. The Korth were not shooting to disable. They were shooting to kill. Hyun collapsed. Minji caught him, her arms wrapping around his body as they both went down. His blood was hot against her hands, spreading fast across his uniform. Hyun, stay with me. His eyes were unfocused, his breathing rapid and shallow. Run, he whispered. Escape pod. Seal yourself in, run. No, Minji said. Her voice broke. No, I'm not leaving you. The Korth leader walked closer, his heavy boots echoing in the cargo bay. He looked down at them with what might have been amusement. This is what makes humans weak, he said. You care too much. You feel too much. A real warrior knows when to abandon the wounded. Minji held Hyun tighter. His blood was everywhere now, pooling beneath them, soaking into her uniform. He was dying. She could feel his life draining away in her arms. Please, she whispered, not to the Korth, to Hyun, to the universe, to anyone who might listen. Please don't leave me. The Korth leader raised his weapon. Let me show you what mercy looks like in the real galaxy, human child. He shot Hyun again, point blank, in the chest where he already bled. Hyun's body jerked in Minji's arms. His eyes went wide, then empty. His breathing stopped. Minji felt something break inside her. Not her heart. Something deeper. Something that kept her human. The Korth leader expected her to scream, to cry, to break down. That was what emotional species did when they lost someone they loved. They collapsed. They gave up. Minji did none of those things. She laid Hyun's body down gently, carefully, like he was sleeping and she did not want to wake him. Her hands were steady despite the blood. Her breathing was even despite the horror. Then she stood up. The Korth leader tilted his head, curious. You want to die beside him? How touching. Minji did not answer. She did not speak at all. Her eyes had changed, gone flat and cold and empty of everything except a terrible focused clarity. The Korth could not see it through their helmets, could not understand what they were looking at. They had forgotten something important about humans. Humans evolved on Earth. A world of predators and disasters and 1,000 different ways to die. Humans survived that world not by being the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. They survived by being too stubborn to quit, by pushing their bodies beyond any sane limit, by becoming something more than civilized when civilization failed to keep them alive. The Korth had just killed Minji's pack, and now her body was flooding with chemicals that most species would consider poison. Adrenaline, cortisol, endorphins. Her heart rate spiked to levels that would damage most organs. Her muscles tensed, ready to use their full strength without the safety limits that prevented self-injury. Her brain shifted into a state of hyperfocus that some scientists called the berserker mode. Others called it the survival state. Minji did not call it anything because she was not thinking in words anymore. She was thinking in targets. 8 Korth, 8 threats, 8 obstacles between her and survival. The Korth leader raised his weapon again, but Minji was already moving. 23 seconds. That was how long it took. 23 seconds for the human species to remind the galaxy why they had crawled to the top of Earth's food chain, despite being weaker than bears, slower than wolves, and softer than almost everything that wanted to kill them. 23 seconds to show what happened when you backed a persistence predator into a corner and took away everything it loved. 23 seconds to prove that humans were not weak. They were patient, and their patience had just run out. The first 3 seconds were the most important. The Korth leader was still laughing, his weapon rising to finish what he started, when Minji covered the distance between them. 3 meters. She crossed it faster than his eyes could track, faster than his combat-trained reflexes could respond to. Humans were not fast, not compared to most species. But adrenaline did things to human bodies that other species could not replicate. It removed the safety limits. It allowed muscles to contract with their full force, consequences be damned. Minji's leg muscles were designed by millions of years of evolution to run down prey over dozens of miles. For 3 meters, they made her a bullet. She hit the Korth leader low and hard. Her shoulder drove into the weak point where his armor plates met at the hip joint. The impact would have shattered her collarbone under normal circumstances, but she did not feel it. Her body was not processing pain anymore. The Korth leader staggered. Before he could recover, Minji grabbed his weapon arm with both hands. She twisted using his own mass against him and snapped the arm backward at the elbow. The joint broke with a wet cracking sound. The Korth leader screamed. His weapon clattered to the floor. Minji scooped it up in one fluid motion. 4 seconds gone. 2 Korth soldiers rushed her from opposite sides, moving to flank. They were fast-trained, coordinated, but Minji's brain was processing the battlefield at a speed that would burn her out in minutes. Right now, in this moment, she saw everything. The angle of their approach, the timing of their steps, the exact point where they would converge on her position. She waited 1, heartbeat, 2. Then she moved. She ducked under the first Korth's reaching arms and drove her elbow up into his helmet's faceplate. The armor cracked. She used his momentary blindness to shove him directly into the path of the second Korth. They collided with the sound of metal on metal. Before either could recover, Minji raised the stolen weapon and fired. Once, twice, point-blank range into both of them. They dropped. 8 seconds. The remaining 5 Korth opened fire. Energy blasts filled the cargo bay with light and heat and the smell of burning metal. Minji was already moving, diving behind a storage container as the blasts tore through the space where she had been standing. This was where human evolution gave her an advantage most species could not understand. The Korth were stronger, faster in short bursts, but they tired quickly. Their bodies were built for overwhelming force, not endurance. Minji's body was built to run for hours, to fight for hours, to keep moving when any sane creature would collapse. She did not stop. She rolled from cover to cover, each movement precise and economical. The Korth kept firing, their shots coordinated and professional. But Minji's pattern recognition was a product of a brain that evolved to track animals across changing terrain. She read their firing patterns like a language, anticipated their shots, stayed one step ahead. 12 seconds. One Korth tried to circle her position. Minji heard his heavy footsteps against the metal floor, tracked his position by sound alone. When he rounded the corner, she was waiting. She had found a piece of broken metal from the damaged barricade. Sharp, heavy. She drove it through the weak point in his armor at the neck. The Korth went down, choking. Minji took his weapon too. Now she had two. 13 seconds. The remaining 4 Korth changed tactics. They stopped trying to flank and instead advanced together, a wall of armored bodies that would overwhelm her by sheer mass. It was a good strategy. Against most opponents, it would have worked. But Minji was not most opponents. She climbed. Human hands were built for tool use, for climbing, for gripping. She scaled the storage containers with the same ease her ancestors had climbed trees to escape predators. The Korth, massive and heavy, could not follow. From above, she rained fire down on them. Her shots were precise, targeting the joints and weak points she had memorized from thousands of training sessions. One Korth took a blast to the knee joint and collapsed. Another's helmet shattered under sustained fire. 16 seconds. 2 Korth left standing. They split up, trying to divide her attention. One started climbing after her while the other kept her pinned with covering fire. Minji jumped. It was a 4-meter drop to the cargo bay floor. She landed hard, rolled, absorbed the impact with trained efficiency. The Korth who had been firing at her turned, tried to track her new position, but Minji was already inside his guard. She fought dirty. No honor, no rules, just survival. She used everything she had. Elbows, knees, headbutts. The Korth's armor protected him from weapons but made him slow, cumbersome. Minji was small and fast and fought with a savagery that shocked him. She found a gap in his armor at the armpit, drove her stolen blade into it, twisted. He fell. 20 seconds. The last Korth, the one who had tried to climb after her, dropped from the containers. He was smart enough to be afraid now, smart enough to realize that something had gone terribly wrong. He ran. Minji shot him in the back. He fell forward, his armor sparking where the energy blast had punched through. He tried to crawl. Tried to reach the cargo bay door. Minji walked after him. Not running. Just walking. Her heart rate was still spiking at 180 beats per minute. Her muscles were burning through energy at an unsustainable rate. Her body was poisoning itself with stress hormones. She did not care. She stood over the last Korth and fired again. And again. Until he stopped moving. 23 seconds. Minji stood in the center of the cargo bay, surrounded by 8 dead Korth. Blood covered her from head to toe. Most of it was Hyun's, some of it was hers. Some of it belonged to the Korth. She was breathing hard now, her body starting to feel the cost of what she had just done. Her hands were shaking. Her vision blurred at the edges. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind exhaustion and pain. But she was alive. And the Korth were not. Somewhere outside the ship she heard engines. The Academy rescue vessel had arrived. They must have received an automated distress signal when the ship was damaged. They were here to save her. They were too late. Minji walked to the cargo bay door. Every step hurt. Her body was screaming at her to stop, to rest, to acknowledge the damage she had done to herself. She ignored it. The door controls still worked. She hit the release. The cargo bay door opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Light flooded in from the rescue vessel's spotlights, bright and harsh after the dim emergency lighting. Commander Vexthor stood at the head of the rescue team, his scales gleaming in the light. Behind him were a dozen security officers, weapons drawn, ready to storm the ship. They froze when they saw her. Minji walked out slowly. In her right hand, she still held one of the Korth weapons, though it hung loose at her side. Blood dripped from her uniform, leaving a trail behind her. Her dark hair was matted with it. Her face was spattered with it. Behind her, visible through the open cargo bay door, lay 8 Korth bodies. Vexthor stared at her. His vertical pupils were wide with something that might have been shock. Or fear. "Cadet Kang," he said slowly. "Where is Cadet Park?" Minji turned and walked back into the cargo bay without answering. She knelt beside Hyun's body, the body of her best friend, her partner, her pack. Gently, so gently, she lifted him. Hyun was heavy in death, his body limp and cold. But Minji had evolved from ancestors who could carry their wounded for miles. She lifted him and began walking back to the door. Vexthor stepped aside. The security team stepped aside. Everyone stepped aside as the human cadet walked past them, covered in blood, carrying her dead friend. No one spoke. No one moved. They just watched as Minji carried Hyun to the rescue vessel's medical bay. Behind her, in the cargo bay of the damaged reconnaissance ship, 8 Korth pirates lay dead. The elapsed time from when Hyun was shot to when Minji emerged from the cargo bay was 23 seconds. The Academy security footage would later confirm this. 23 seconds for one human to eliminate 8 armored, trained professional killers. The galaxy would spend a long time trying to understand how that was possible. But those who understood Earth, who understood what it took to survive on a world that killed 99% of every species that ever lived there, those people were not surprised. They knew what humans were capable of when you took away everything they loved. They knew what happened when you cornered a persistent predator and forced it to stop running. They knew that humans were not weak. They were patient. And their patience only lasted until you gave them a reason to stop waiting. That reason, lying cold in Minji's arms, had a name, Hyun Park, and he deserved better than this. The medical bay was too bright and too clean and smelled like antiseptic. Minji sat in a chair outside the surgery room, still covered in blood, and waited. The doctors had taken Hyun 3 hours ago. No one had told her anything since. She stared at her hands. They were clean now. Someone had made her wash them. She could not remember who or when. But Hyun's blood was gone from her skin, scrubbed away like it had never been there. She wished it was still there. Wished she could still feel it. It was the last part of him she had touched while he was alive. Footsteps approached. Commander Vexthor. She recognized his gait, the heavy, deliberate steps of a Kryn warrior, Cadet Kang. Minji did not look up. Is he alive? Vexthor was silent for a moment. Yes, barely. The doctors say it should be impossible. The shots that hit him should have destroyed vital organs. But human biology is redundant in ways we did not understand. You have backup systems, clotting factors we lack, a will to survive that defies logic. He's stubborn, Minji said quietly. Yes. Another pause. As are you. Now Minji looked up. Vexthor's expression was difficult to read, but his vertical pupils were dilated, a sign of stress in his species. I reviewed the security footage, he said, from your ship's internal cameras. I watched what happened in that cargo bay, and I do not understand it. 8 Korth soldiers trained and armed eliminated in 23 seconds by a single human cadet with no enhancements. His scales rippled, a physical sign of disturbance. How is this possible? Minji looked back at her clean hands. You wanted to know what humans are capable of. Now you know. This is not capability. This is... Vexthor struggled for words. Your species should not be able to do this. Your world is low gravity. Your evolution should have made you weak. Our world tried to kill us every day, Minji said flatly. For millions of years. Everything on Earth wanted us dead. The animals, the weather, the diseases. We survived by being too stubborn to die. That does not explain what I saw on that footage, doesn't it? Minji finally met his eyes. You know what adrenaline is, Commander? A stress hormone. Most species produce it. Not like us. Human adrenaline can triple our strength, remove our ability to feel pain, speed up our reflexes to levels that would kill us if sustained. Most species use it for a few seconds. Humans can maintain it for minutes. Hours if necessary, she paused. It's how we used to hunt. We would chase animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. Days sometimes. We just wouldn't stop. Vexthor was silent. You wanted to test us, Minji continued. You sent us to the contested zone hoping we would fail. Hoping it would prove humans don't belong in the coalition. Vexthor started, then stopped. Yes, I believed your species was too weak for military service. And now? The commander looked away. Now I believe I was wrong. But I am not certain that what I witnessed makes me less concerned. A warrior who can enter such a state is dangerous. Only to enemies. Are you certain? The human on that footage was not rational. Not controlled. She was a creature of pure violence. Minji felt something cold settle in her chest. I did what I had to do to survive. I am not judging you, Cadet. I am trying to understand you. Before Minji could respond, the surgery room door opened. A doctor emerged, a tall Velhari with tired eyes. He's stable, the doctor said. Cadet Park will live. Minji felt her entire body sag with relief she had not known she was holding back. Can I see him? He's unconscious. Will be for several days while his body heals, but yes, you can see him. Minji stood and walked into the surgery room without waiting for permission. Hyun lay on a medical bed, his chest wrapped in regenerative bandages, tubes, and monitors connected to his body. His face was pale but peaceful. She took his hand carefully. It was warm, alive. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry I wasn't fast enough. You saved his life. Minji turned. Ambassador Jun Lee stood in the doorway. The older man looked exhausted, like he had run across the entire academy to get here. The doctors said if you had gotten him to medical care even 5 minutes later, he would have died. Lee continued. You carried him from that ship while wounded yourself. You saved him. I should have saved him before he got shot. You're not a god, Minji, you're a soldier, and soldiers can't prevent every wound. Lee walked closer. I heard about what happened. What you did? I killed 8 people. You eliminated 8 pirates who were murdering Coalition cadets in neutral space. The galaxy is better without them. Minji looked back at Hyun. I didn't feel like myself. When it was happening, I was someone else. Something else. Lee pulled up a chair and sat beside her. Can I tell you a story about Earth? If you want. A long time ago, before we had cities or technology, humans lived in small groups. We were not the strongest animals, not the fastest, not the biggest, but we had something special. We could run for days without stopping. We could track prey across entire continents, and when we chose someone as family as part of our pack, we would die to protect them. I've heard this before, but you haven't heard this part. Other species in the galaxy think humans are dangerous because we're violent. They're wrong. We're dangerous because we love so fiercely that we become monsters to protect what we love. Lee looked at her steadily. That's what they saw on that footage, Minji, not a monster. A human protecting her pack. It felt like being a monster. All warriors feel that way sometimes. The key is knowing when to be the monster and when to be human again. He nodded at Hyun. You're being human right now, staying with your friend, making sure he's okay. That's just as important as what you did in that cargo bay. They sat in silence for a while. Eventually, Lee stood. The Academy wants to debrief you. So does Coalition Intelligence. Everyone wants to know how one human killed 8 Korth in less than half a minute. He paused at the door. Take your time. Stay with Hyun. The galaxy can wait. Over the next 3 days, the story spread through the Academy like wildfire. The human cadet who walked out of a death trap covered in blood. The 23 seconds that changed everything. Talia, the Vilhari who had mocked Minji so often, now avoided eye contact in the hallways. Other cadets whispered when Minji passed. Some looked afraid, others looked impressed. None looked dismissive anymore. Commander Vexthor delivered a formal apology to Minji in front of the entire academy. He admitted his prejudice, acknowledged his mistake in sending them on a dangerous patrol as a test, promised to evaluate all cadets equally regardless of species. It felt hollow to Minji. Hyun had nearly died because of that prejudice. An apology did not fix that. On the 4th day, Hyun woke up. Minji was there, sitting beside his bed like she had been for hours every day. When his eyes opened, she felt tears start to fall before she could stop them. Hey, Hyun said, his voice rough. Why are you crying? You died, Minji said. You died in my arms and I couldn't stop it. But I'm alive now. He tried to smile. Humans are hard to kill, remember? Don't joke about this. I'm not joking. I'm grateful. He squeezed her hand weakly. You saved me. Vexthor told me what you did, how you carried me out. I should have protected you better. You did protect me. You avenged me. You made sure those Korth couldn't hurt anyone else. Hyun's expression grew serious. I heard the whispers. What people are saying about you. About what you're capable of. I scared them. Good. Maybe now they'll stop treating us like we're weak. He paused. How do you feel? About what happened? Minji thought about that. Tired, confused, I keep seeing it in my head. Every detail. Every second. That's normal. Trauma does that. Is it normal that I don't regret it? That I would do it again? Yeah, Hyun said quietly. It is. Because you did it for the right reasons. You protected your pack. That word again. Pack. Like they were animals instead of people. But maybe that was closer to the truth than Minji wanted to admit. Humans were animals. Evolved animals who built cities and spaceships and pretended they were civilized. But underneath, they were still the creatures who survived Earth. And Earth did not raise anything weak. Hyun recovered slowly. The doctors said he would need months of physical therapy. His scars would be permanent. But he would live. He would fight again. The coalition sent representatives to investigate the incident. They examined the wrecked ship, studied the Korth bodies, reviewed the footage over and over. Their final report concluded that Minji had acted in self-defense and with exceptional skill under impossible circumstances. They also quietly revised their assessment of human combat capabilities. Upward. 6 months later, Minji stood in front of the Academy Assembly Hall wearing her dress uniform. The ceremony was simple but meaningful. Graduation. The end of one journey and the beginning of another. Beside her, Hyun stood at attention. He still moved carefully, favoring his left side where the worst of his injuries had been, but he stood tall. The scars on his chest were hidden beneath his uniform, but everyone in the room knew they were there. Commander Vexthor called their names. Cadet Minji Kang, Cadet Hyun Park, step forward. They walked to the podium together. The room was silent except for their footsteps. Vexthor held 2 sets of insignia, the marks of graduated officers in the coalition military. His expression was unreadable, but when he spoke, his voice carried clearly. 6 months ago, I believed humans were too weak to serve in the coalition military. I was wrong. These 2 cadets have demonstrated capabilities that exceed many veteran soldiers. They have earned their place among us. He pinned the insignia to their uniforms. Then, in a gesture that surprised everyone, he placed his clawed hand over his heart in the Kryn salute of respect. You have my apology and my admiration. Both were earned. The assembly erupted in applause. Not polite ceremony applause. Real recognition. Other cadets stood and cheered. Species who had dismissed humans for years now acknowledged them as equals. Minji caught Talia's eye in the crowd. The Velhari nodded once, a gesture of respect. Minji nodded back. After the ceremony, Ambassador Lee found them outside. Congratulations, officers. He smiled with genuine pride. I always knew you would make it. Thank you, Ambassador, Hyun said. I have news. The coalition wants to form a new rapid response unit. Multi-species, elite. They want you both on the team. Minji exchanged a glance with Hyun. What kind of missions? The difficult kind. High risk, high importance. Exactly the type of work that needs soldiers who won't quit even when the situation seems impossible. Lee's smile faded slightly. It's dangerous. More dangerous than standard military service. You can decline. No, Minji said immediately. We'll do it. You don't want to think about it? We've already been through the worst, Hyun said. Everything else is just details. Lee looked between them and nodded. I'll inform the coalition. Your first assignment begins in 2 weeks. The story of what happened in that cargo bay had spread far beyond the academy. Across the coalition, humanity's reputation shifted. They were no longer seen as soft newcomers. The legend of 23 seconds became a cautionary tale told in military academies across a dozen worlds. Don't underestimate the humans. Don't assume they're weak. Don't make them angry, and especially, don't hurt their pack. The Korth pirate faction that had ambushed Minji and Hyun sent a formal delegation to Earth. They returned captured human prisoners and offered reparations. They wanted peace. They had learned their lesson. Minji heard about it from Ambassador Lee during their pre-deployment briefing. They're afraid of us now, she said, because of what I did. Not just you, because of what you represent. Humans who fight to protect each other with everything they have. Lee pulled up a tactical display. Your first mission is here. A hostage situation on a mining colony. 3 species held captive by mercenaries. Local security can't handle it. Why us? Hyun asked. Because the mercenaries are dug in deep. Standard assault would result in high casualties for both the hostages and the rescue force. They need soldiers who can think creatively, who can endure, who won't quit even when the odds are impossible. Minji studied the display. It was a complex situation. Multiple entry points. Hostages scattered across different locations. Mercenaries with superior firepower and defensive positions. 6 months ago, she would have been nervous. Now she just saw problems to solve. We'll need 3 days to plan, she said. You have 2. Then we'll work fast. The rapid response team consisted of 6 members. 2 humans, 2 Velari, 1 Kryn, and one being from a species Minji had never encountered before. They were all experienced, all skilled, all volunteers who wanted to be part of this new initiative. Their first mission together went perfectly, not because it was easy, but because they worked as a unit. The humans brought endurance and creative problem-solving. The Velhari brought speed and enhanced senses. The Kryn brought armor and strength. Together they were more than the sum of their parts. They extracted all hostages with 0 casualties. The coalition media called it a miracle. The team just called it their job. Months passed. Missions piled up, each one dangerous, each one important. The team earned a reputation for taking impossible situations and making them possible, and Minji learned something about herself. She was not the monster she had feared becoming. She was a soldier who could access that state of focused violence when necessary, then return to herself when the danger passed. It was a tool, not an identity. Hyun understood this better than anyone. He had seen her at her worst and still trusted her at her best. "You know what I think?" he said one night as they reviewed mission plans. "What?" "I think the galaxy needed to see what we're capable of. Not to make them fear us, to make them respect us. And do they? Yeah, they do. Not just because you killed 8 Korth in 23 seconds. Because we proved that humans don't give up. We don't leave our people behind. We don't quit even when we should." Minji thought about Earth, about the world that had tried to kill humanity for millions of years, about the ancestors who had looked at that impossible challenge and decided to survive anyway. "Stupid persistence predators," she said with a small smile. Exactly. A year after graduation, Minji received a message from the academy. They wanted her to speak to the new class of human cadets, to share her experience, to help prepare them for what they would face. She almost declined. What could she say that would help? That the galaxy would judge them? That they would have to prove themselves over and over? That sometimes they would have to become something frightening to protect what they loved? But she accepted. Because those cadets deserved to hear the truth from someone who had lived it. The lecture hall was full when she arrived. 50 human cadets fresh from Earth, nervous and eager. They looked so young. Had she ever been that young? "My name is Officer Minji Kang," she began. "A year ago I sat where you're sitting. I thought I understood what it meant to serve in the coalition military. I was wrong." She told them about the prejudice, the dismissal, the constant pressure to prove humanity's worth. She told them about the ambush, about Hyun dying in her arms, about the 23 seconds that changed everything. "The other species will underestimate you," she said. "They will think you're weak because you don't have natural armor or enhanced strength or superior speed. Let them think that, because they're wrong." She paused, making eye contact with cadets throughout the room. "We're not weak. We're patient. We evolved on a world that killed almost everything that ever lived there. We survived by being too stubborn to die, by running longer than anything could run, by refusing to quit even when quitting made sense. The galaxy will learn what that means. Some will learn through respect. Others will learn through experience. But all of them will learn that humans don't break easily." A cadet raised her hand. "Are you afraid? When you go on missions?" "Yes," Minji said honestly. "Every time. Fear is healthy. It keeps you sharp. But I've learned that being afraid and being capable are not opposites. You can be terrified and still do your job." Another hand. "Do you regret what happened?" "In the cargo bay?" Minji thought about that question. She had asked herself the same thing many times. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that Hyun got hurt. I regret that those Korth made choices that forced me to kill them. But do I regret protecting my friend? Protecting my pack? No, never." The cadets nodded. They understood. That was the thing about humans. They understood pack loyalty in a way most species didn't. It was coded into their DNA. After the lecture, a young cadet approached her privately. "Officer Kang, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "When you were in that cargo bay fighting for your life, how did you not give up? How did you keep going?" Minji thought about Hyun's blood on her hands, about the choice between running to save herself or staying to avenge him, about the moment when her humanity had fallen away and something more primal had taken over. "I thought about what would happen if I quit," she said finally. "Those Korth would have won. They would have killed my best friend and gotten away with it. They would have proven that humans are weak, that we don't belong in the galaxy." She met the cadet's eyes. "I couldn't let that happen. So I didn't quit. I didn't run. I fought. And I kept fighting until there was no one left to fight. Because you're human. Because I'm human, Minji agreed. And humans don't quit. We never have. We never will. The cadet smiled. I'm going to remember that. Good. Remember it when things get hard. When people dismiss you or doubt you or treat you like you don't belong, remember that you come from a world that tried to kill you and you're still here. That means something. Later that night, Minji met Hyun at the observation deck where they had stood before their first patrol mission. Earth was still too far away to see, but they both knew which direction to look. How did the lecture go? Hyun asked. Good, I think. I told them the truth. That we're terrifying persistence predators who refuse to quit? Something like that. They stood in comfortable silence watching the stars. Out there in the darkness were 1,000 challenges waiting. Dangerous missions, hostile forces, impossible odds. Minji was not afraid. She had learned something important in that cargo bay, something the galaxy was still trying to understand. Humans were not the strongest species, not the fastest, not the smartest, but they had something that could not be measured or quantified. They had the ability to look at an impossible situation and decide to survive anyway. They had the loyalty to protect their pack at any cost. They had the stubbornness to keep fighting when anyone else would surrender. And they had proven in 23 seconds of focused violence what happened when you made them angry. The galaxy would remember that lesson, and humanity would make sure they never forgot.